Hey there, thanks for stopping by my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Today we're going to be doing some watercoloring. I'll go ahead and put a link to everything I use down in the description box in case you'd like to pick something up. Alright, so I went ahead and I'm using some Arches 140 pound cold press watercolor paper, and I used some Ranger super fine white detail embossing powder to stamp my images onto my cardstock. I did use a prepping tool before I stamped it so that I wouldn't have to worry about any of the ink or the little embossing powder bits going where they just shouldn't go. If you use the embossing buddy, then it's an anti-static thing, so it keeps it from going where you don't want it to go. I'm going to be using my M.Graham tube watercolors today. I picked up a few tubes over at my local art supply store, and I thought it would be fun to try them out. I seen a video here on YouTube with someone using it straight out of the tube, and I really liked how it turned out. I thought it had a little bit more control, so we're going to try it out today and see how it works. So I'm starting out with quinacridone red, and I went ahead and I just dabbed a little dab there on my porcelain plate, and I'm using a Princeton Velvet Touch No. 3 round to paint with for my flowers here. I went ahead and I got the paintbrush wet, and then I'm just dipping it into my paint over there on my plate, and then I'm putting a little dab of the dark color around the edge of the flower, and then I rinse my brush off and kind of wipe it on the side of the cup there and dab it a little bit on my paper towel, and then what's on the brush I use to spread out a little bit. And when I get about 3/4 of the way out, I go ahead and dip my brush back in my water, dab it on my paper towel again so it's not quite so wet, and then usually by the second time in there's not any more ink left on there, so the water is all that's left, and I'm just using that water to pull it out to the edge of the petal so it's pretty pink or pretty light there at the edges. I'm trying to keep the dark color in the middle of the flower petals and then just work my way out until it gets lighter at the very edges. You can see as I go around, the petals that I started with over there on the other side are drying, so they're looking a lot lighter than when I started out. That's okay, because after I go all the way around, I can always come back in and add some more paint on top of that to darken it up where I want it to be darker. I really like the embossing too, because you can't really mess it up. The paint just stays in that one area without having to worry about bleed over. You can, of course, put too much water on it and it will spill over into the next section, so you don't want it to be too full. It will go over the edges of your embossing, but this makes it kind of quick and easy for you to just go around and fill everything in. So now I'm trying to decide what I want to do with it, so I decided I was going to darken some of these petals up. I'm just going back in with a second layer. And again, I'm just putting the darker paint right next to the edges where I want it to be darkest, and I'm dipping my brush a few times to wipe it off, and then using that little bit of water to wipe it out to the edges. And it will darken the petals up however many times you want. It worked out really great that it was already dry, and it just added that second layer on there. It looks really, really pretty. I'm liking this red color already, so I can already see me using this on multiple flowers that I have in my stamping stash. I'm just trying to going in and here working my way back around. I don't think I go around and do every petal, but I'm not sure yet what I did. I can't remember. I shot the video yesterday, and then I had to wait for Lexi to go to school today so I could do the voiceover. And the dogs are downstairs lounging on the couch, so I'm not worried about them. And this little petal there, I decided after I painted it, I maybe should have went the opposite direction and made it darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, because it looked like it's kind of folding up, kind of going over the middle of my flower there, but that's okay. It's a flower. We're going to put it on a card. It'll be perfect. I went ahead and I stamped it twice, so I'm just going to go ahead and paint the second flower the exact same way. I may add a few more layers, or I may only do one layer on this one so that it looks different from the other flower when I layer it on my card. I haven't decided. And there was that petal on the last one I decided should be lighter at the edges. I went ahead and did it the opposite direction this time so that we could try that out and see how it looks in the end. I'm just going, with embossing too, you don't really have to worry about not touching the petal next to it. So if I was painting this without the embossing, I would kind of have to skip around on the petals and not do one next to each other, because it would bleed into the next one. You have to wait for it to dry. But with the embossing on there, I was able to go ahead and just paint each petal right next to it and work my way around to the other side. And there I got a bug decided to join me for my painting. And then I'm added a little bit more paint onto my plate over there because I was running out. and I'm just going to work my way around to the other side. I know I was having a crazy day. The bug decided to join me. I'm like, oh, that's going to be great on the video. So I had to stop there for a second and swoosh him away so he would go away and leave me alone. He did finally fly off somewhere else, so I didn't have to deal with him coming back to torture me every 5 seconds with his flittering around everywhere. So now we're going to go ahead, and I'm working around the back side of my petals over here, and I'm just working my way again all the way from the middle out to the outside. I'm going to turn it around because I thought it'd be easier for you guys to see it if I was painting with the painting on top and me painting towards the bottom there. Kind of worked out, even though the flower's now upside down. But for me, it made it a lot easier for you to be able to see exactly what I was painting because I was already planning on speeding it up. I spent about an hour painting the flowers and the leaves and all the stuff I'm going to use for the card. So it wasn't an instant thing. It still took time, but it was great that with the embossing, it could dry and then I could come back and fiddle with it some more. I really like that. Just going to work our way through the rest of these petals here. I'm really liking so far how this paint is looking. I have a bunch of paints in the pans that I really like too, but I'm deciding that maybe I might want to switch over and get some tube paints and use it straight out of the tube. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint some leaves. So I went ahead and stamped my 3 leaves with the same, and I did some of the smaller leaves that were in the set too because I wasn't sure what I was going to want to paint with or what I was going to use on the card, so I'm just going to paint them all. So I have sap green, cadmium yellow deep, and then some raw umber there on my plate. I went ahead and started with my sap green there on my leaf. I put it down in the middle, and then I'm just using the same kind of method I used for my flowers. I'm using my paintbrush to just kind of wipe that ink so it gets lighter towards the edges of my flowers. And I always too, because there's on the middle of the leaves there's some embossing in there, I kind of make sure to wipe over that with my paintbrush so that the paint doesn't get stuck on top of the white line and make it green. Here I mix a little bit of my sap green with my cadmium yellow deep, and I'm making a little yellowish green color. I'm just adding that to my leaves, and the leaves did not have time to dry, so when I put it on there it just kind of spilled over and worked its way to the edges of my leaf there. It wasn't any big problem. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of that burnt umber, and I'm just going to kind of drop it on my leaf in certain places. Kind of looks like it's turning into a fall color here, and because it's wet it feathered out away from the edges and kind of made a really pretty pattern on each of the leaves there. And I'm adding a little bit more. I decided to paint these little small leaves here in, and they're pretty dinky, so it didn't take much. And then I'm just kind of dabbing them with my wet paintbrush to make sure they soak into the paper there, not just sitting on top of my embossing. I don't end up using any of those small leaves on my card, but I went ahead and cut them out with a coordinating die when I cut everything else out and put it in a pile because I can always use them later at on a different card. Here I decided I was going to try a little bit different method, so I went ahead and got my paintbrush wet, I got the leaves wet, and then I dropped the paint on top of that and kind of swooshed it around, and we're going to see what kind of different detail this adds to it on this card. See how it just kind of spills out and makes this really pretty pattern on there? I really like that. And then I'm rinsing my brush off and I just kind of wipe it around. I'm adding a little bit of my burnt or my raw umber on there so that we can add a little bit of brown. We want them to be all cohesive, so I want them to all kind of match, so I'm adding that brown the same as we did the first leaf. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of yellow on there. I didn't dilute it, I just went ahead and dropped it in there to see what kind of colors we could get on our leaves to make them pretty. And here we're going to go ahead and do the next leaf up. So I kind of started the same way as I did the first leaf. I like how the second leaf looked, but I really liked the first leaf, how it kind of was soft and I had more control over where it was going. So I went back to the original way of doing my painting there so that we could just switch back and see how it all turns out. And I'm again just going to add some different colors on my leaf to make them have some shadows and stuff and some different colors. Leaves are not all just one color, at least around here. I really like it when it's in the fall time and they are turning different pretty colors and different shades. Here we'll add a little bit of our yellow green on there, kind of change the color of that green a little bit. And I like too when you do with the sap green at the middle, and when I first started you let it dry, that still stays at the bottom of the painting. It didn't go anywhere. You can add layers on top of it and still see the layers underneath. I thought that was really pretty. We're going to add a little bit of yellow, some of our brown on there, and just darken these leaves up so they're more of a fallish color to match the first one there. You can see how different this leaf is from that one right in the middle. And then over here I had stamps a little bit, or 2 more of those small leaves, so I'm just going in and painting those so that they'll be all finished up. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our card together. So I'm using some Basil Marshmallow cardstock. That pink is Basil Berry Blush cardstock. And then for my little die piece there, I went ahead and cut it out with a penny black elegant stitching die cut. I think I forgot to mention, but this flower set is an Altenew Beautiful Day stamp set. It comes with the flowers, both leaves, and the little sentiment there. And I'm just kind of arranging them on there where I want them to go. So I put a little bit of liquid glue on the back of a couple of leaves. You notice I only used 2 of the leaves instead of 3. So I just put the extra one in a pile, and I'll use it at a later date. I think I'll go ahead and put a pop dot behind this one so it's kind of popped up a little bit off of the leaf, and then we'll add some pop dots to the back of that other flower too so that it's popped up off the card a little bit. For my little sentiment there, I went ahead and used my Ranger embossing powder that I used to stamp my flowers, and I used some Raven Basil cardstock to stamp it on, but I turned it over and used the back because the front of the piece has some texture on it, and I didn't like how it was all bumpy and gritty looking, so I just went ahead and flipped it over and stamped it on the back because it's smooth on the back. And also make sure that you use your embossing buddy on that, because the black cardstock will show every little splatter that you forgot to wipe off. So I still had a few on there, but I went ahead and just left it like that. And now I'm just adding a couple of little pink sequins to my card to finish that up. And so that's going to do it for us today. If you have a question, leave me a comment down below. If you'd like to see more close-up pictures of the card, go ahead and head over to the store blog, and I'll put a link down in the description box. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, to hit the thumbs up button. And right about now, you should be seeing a screen that'll show you a couple more videos I thought you might be interested in. If you are, just click on either one of those and it will take you straight to the video. Otherwise, I hope you're having a fabulous day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.